Sonic the Hedgehog starting us off, baby. Soundtrack of my childhood. Welcome back to In the Alley, guys. My name is Cody. Glad you guys are back for another video. We're previewing Friday's matchups. We only have a couple of games on the docket. We got Jacksonville and Tulsa, and we got Green Bay and Sioux Falls. Timestamps right here. Before we move on, I do just want to say a little prayer. Bow your heads and a little moment of silence. Please intertwine your fingers and please pray along with me. Dear football gods in heaven, we thank you for this, our day, our daily bread, of St. Tryon giving us back the transactions page in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Goalposts. Blessed be thy name. Amen. Let's do preview number 1. You gotta have a little fun, right? Let's move on with the preview. Popping up here. Friday, May 3rd, 7:05 p.m. Central Time, YouTube and Caffeine TV, live from the BOK Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The 0-5 Jacksonville Sharks are taking on the 3-2 Tulsa Oilers. They have already beaten their win total from last year. They've only played 5 games, have the Oilers. In search of their first win, Jacksonville heading to Tulsa. And I don't know, I'd have to look back on the archives and stuff on Arena Fan. I don't know if Jacksonville went to Tulsa in the AFL. They might have. And I know they went to Oklahoma City for sure, but I cannot remember if they went to Tulsa. But regardless, new league, new year, all of that stuff. But same arena. So stat leaders for each team: Fred Payton, 54 yards, 2 touchdowns, 14 carries. Still has not surpassed Connor Blunt's passing yet. He's getting close, though. Connor Blunt, we'll talk about him in the injury report. Jeremiah Payton supplants, I believe it was Tamarian Terry, when it comes to receiving yards. However, Tamarian Terry, again, off of injured reserve. We'll talk about that in a second. So we'll see what goes on there. York Jones, Sir Zion Dance, and Harrison Poole all lead on the defensive side of the statistics. My players to watch here: Jeremiah Payton, which I'll talk about it here in a second because I don't think he's playing. But Jeremiah Payton, 6 catches, 81 yards, and 1 touchdown. I might switch that to Tamarian Terry just to see what he does when he comes back from the injured reserve list. I'm genuinely curious to see how Jacksonville is going to match up with Tulsa. Defensive back for Jacksonville, Jabari Gorman, my player to watch defensively. 14.5 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss against Arizona. All over the place. It was nice to see him respond after getting kicked out in their previous game. 14.5 tackles will do it. So it pains me to say this, but Jacksonville has not scored over 35 points in a single game this year. They've played 5 games. In the last 2 games, I believe they've only scored 35 points. They have not scored 36 or more in a single game. They need to bring the offense. Simple as that. This offense has been lacking. The running game, lacking. I don't know. This team, I know I just did their review or recap yesterday or the day before. This team is able to stay in games, and then it just seems like they run out of gas. Can they do it here against a team that looked like they were firing on all cylinders? Let's talk about Tulsa here. Daniel Smith leading in rushing and passing as he has been practically all season. Alexis Rosario, he is a breakout star. 27 receptions, 331 receiving yards, and 9 touchdowns. He is my player to watch offensively for them. Let's look down there. 6 catches, 123 yards, and 3 touchdowns. By God, that's roughly like a third of what his season stat line is. I think he's done this roughly in back-to-back games, too. I think he's had 2 games in a row over 100 yards receiving. He is turned into the go-to guy for Smith. He is getting hot at the right time, really putting Tulsa in a playoff position. If they keep winning this, it'll help them out. Defensively, Noah Lyles, 17.5 tackles, 7.5 tackles for a loss, 4 sacks, 1 forced fumble. He's not my player to watch, but in order to cause some pressure up front, I look for him. I look for him to really just kind of put as much pressure on Fred Payton, which they don't know who's starting. If Payton's going to continue starting, they did put N'Kosi Perry in there towards the end of the game. Might have been some mop-up duty, but regardless, I look for Tulsa's defense to just pressure Jacksonville just like they've been doing with all of the quarterbacks this year. That's simple as that. One person they won't have, and we'll talk about in a sec, Jordan Jones. He's been suspended. Trey Harvey, he is my player to watch. 26.5 tackles, 2.5 for a loss, 1 pick, 2 pass breakups, What he did against Quad City last week, 4.5 tackles, half a tackle for a loss, and 1 pass breakup. He was serviceable. I mean, what more can you ask? Defense is going to have to step up for Tulsa as they always do. The secondary has to cover Tamarian Terry, Cam Solomon. I mean, simple as that. You shut down Jacksonville's running game. Most teams have. You just shut down the passing game. That's all you have to focus on. This is the first ever meeting between the two teams. So 0-0 right now. 13.5 point favorites for the Oilers. Money line is locked with an over-under of 82.5. Not a lot of points and a very heavy favorite for Tulsa. So there's a little, I guess, maybe hint towards the betting lines. So that being said, let's actually go take a look at our first ever injury report. Okay, injury report. And I don't think it's actually the first one. I think we've done stuff with Massachusetts and Quad City when the season opened with short-term IR. But here's this one. Short-term injured reserve for the Sharks: Connor Blunt, Marquise McLean, Jeremiah Price, and Anthony Hayes. So I guess I was wrong. I thought they put Jeremiah Payton on there. I guess I got it confused with Jeremiah Price. So JP, my fault. So yeah, you should have a full stable of wide receivers for Jacksonville into this game. That should bode well for the Sharks if they can get their passing game going. For the Oilers, short-term injured reserve Joshua Crockett. I said it in the preview with Tulsa playing their game against Quad City. I think he's got a broken leg from when I talked to one of the Tulsa coaches, and suspended. I don't know how long he's suspended, but Jordan Jones, he's gotten kicked out of the last 2 games. This might just be a cool-off period for him of like, hey, you've done a little too much right now. Sit this one out. So I was curious if he was going to actually face a game suspension, but here we are. But that is our injury report. I am so excited to actually get this stuff in here. I don't know, it just makes me giddy. This is stuff I've planned for when I started this channel and wanted to do these previews and stuff. So it's really, really nice to have these. Let's go take a look at an actual 25-man roster. Go look at our bets, and we'll move on. All right, 25-man roster popping up here, and I've changed it because I tried to do it based on the last 21 starters and things along those lines, and it's not like I didn't want to continue to do it, but now that we have an actual injury report, we can actually see that, hey, these are the 24, the 25 guys that they are bringing into the game based on when the rosters are solidified and the final, rosters need to be put into place 48 hours before kickoff. So the best that I can do, some might have 24, some could have 26, and things kind of fall through the cracks. But when you look at these two teams here, like I said, a full stable of wide receivers for the Sharks. We don't know who's starting for them. I'm still putting money on Fred Payton until otherwise. They only start 3 offensive linemen. We'll see how that goes unless there's an emergency signing. Defensive line, we'll see who starts. In that regard, Euler Jones, Nick Grant, see who takes Jeremiah Price's spot. Sir Zion Dance will probably start at linebacker as well. The same 4 starters on the defensive back for Jacksonville. I think all 4 of them have started every single game, if I'm not mistaken. One might have missed. I'd have to go back and look. But there's your 25 for Jacksonville, your 25 for Tulsa. Right now, they are carrying 3 quarterbacks still. I'm curious to see if that'll eventually kind of go away here. They just signed Dylan Van Boxel. He was with Sioux Falls for a game or 2 as the backup to Billy Hall. Gerard Ware still your running back. The question here, Montero Dubois was back last week. You kind of have a full stable of wide receivers minus Joshua Crockett for the Oilers. Still carrying the same 3 offensive linemen for them on the Oilers side. Defensive line, I think, should be all right. Lyles, Keandre Hall, I think Ledyard might start unless Chimadunga is in there. I think Trey Smalls either started or played backup for them in the last game, and a full stable of defensive backs. The question you have to ask here is, who's playing linebacker? They don't have a designated linebacker. I think Trey Harvey might fall into that spot. He's a linebacker, defensive back hybrid. And obviously, Michael Hall, Frankie Onate, those are your two kickers. So that's our actual 25-man roster without hopefully having to guess. Maybe. Let's go take a look at our best bet, and we'll move on with the next preview. Best bet. Over 82.5. Now, the hint for me earlier was maybe plus 13.5 for Jacksonville. The reason why is it's an over-under that with that big of a spread of 14 points, it just bodes that Tulsa needs to win by a lot with an over-under. If you are picking a Tulsa blowout here, and I'm not necessarily, but if you are, then chances are you're probably thinking they're going to put 40, maybe big 40s up here, 49 points, something like that, and hoping that Jacksonville scores maybe 35, which should hit the over. I think this could be a close game. I'm betting the over here because I'm hoping, my hope is that this offense for Jacksonville just gets into gear. The issue that we have here, though, is Jacksonville was just on the road against Arizona, having to fly back to Jacksonville, and then on a short week, fly back on a Friday to Tulsa. Don't know if there's any jet lag or anything like that. The hope here is the offense is clicking. You get Tamari and Terry back. Yeah, you lose Jeremiah Price on the defense. If you can score over 35 points a game, sweet. That just means that's less points that Tulsa has to hit for the over. Both teams have to score 41 here. One team has to score 42, actually, in order for this to hit. So, in other words, you just need another touchdown for Tulsa. Pretty much a 49-35 game or something like that. Pretty simple, right? We'll see. But over 82.5, that's what I'm going with. Let's move on with our second preview. All right. Preview number 2 here. Friday, May 3rd, 7:05 p.m. Central Time, YouTube and Caffeine TV. So both these games kicking off at the same time. Live from the Denny Sanford Premier Center in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the 4-1 Green Bay Blizzard are taking on the 0-5 Sioux Falls Storm. I feel like those records should be switched. It just does not feel right to say that half the time. But here we are. Now, I do want to preface this. 4-1 is 4-1. 3 of those wins are against winless teams. Just saying. One of those wins is against Quad City, so that sucks too. But what can you do? Anyway, 4-1. Your record is what it is. You can only play the teams on your schedule. Green Bay, statistical leaders. Max Myler, rushing and passing. He's having a great year, given the circumstances that he's been dealt here. And it's not like it's bad or anything like that. He's missed a game and he's bounced back. He's doing great. He's doing great for what he is, I guess. I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with that. He's playing great, is what I'm trying to say. 463, 10 touchdowns, and 2 picks passing. 46 carries, 150, and 9 rushing touchdowns. Damn good stats. Lowell Patron, 16 catches, 241, 4 touchdowns. But he didn't get the number 1 play on SportsCenter. That was Harry Ballard. So he's got to one-up him here. He's got to one-up him. Defensively, Sean Mustin, and again, microscope time. 14 tackles, 8 for a loss, 3 sacks, 1 pass breakup, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, 1 block kick. He has a number in every statistical category, it seems. He's going to have to sack Billy Hall a lot, and we'll talk about that on the Sioux Falls side. Jalen Alexander, I believe he is coming back to be the linebacker. Talk about that in a second. Centel Williams, 29.5 tackles, 1 for a loss, 1 pick, 5 pass breakups, 1 fumble recovery. The secondary is really good. Players to watch. Max Myler. Now I know the stat line doesn't look too pretty against Iowa. 7 of 15, under 50% completion, 86 yards and 3 touchdowns. Not necessarily the best. 4 rushes, 11 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have 5 total touchdowns on the game. For what it's worth, though, he needs to step up and improve those stats against Sioux Falls. They've already played them. We'll talk about that in 1 second as well. They've already played him. He played great. He needs to do it again. You need to have over 100 yards passing. You probably need to bump up those rushing numbers. I don't think Green Bay ran that well against Iowa last week. You got to get back to that. I'm not saying it's their bread and butter, but you've kind of missed Cagle and Burgess and only 11 rushing yards from Myler. You got to make sure you're dynamic in the offensive side of the ball here. And for Myler, it starts with him. He is the guy that gets the snap every play. I expect him to do good things. Defensive back Riverius Rivers, last game versus Iowa, 8.5 tackles, half a tackle for a loss, and 3 pass breakups. Again, secondary has been playing out of their mind. Rivers should have had 2 interceptions. One should have been, I believe, taken to the house, and they were both called back on penalties. Or maybe it might have been a kick return. I'm not sure. Or both. Anyway, Rivers, Centil Williams, Nigel Canada, Kevin Ransom, the entire secondary, they are stepping up at the right time. We'll see. Is it something they need to worry about with the passing game? I know I've harped on Sioux Falls practically all season, but let's talk about them. Billy Hall, your leading rusher and passer, just like Myler. 574, 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 66 carries, 309 for 8 touchdowns on the ground, so not bad. Kentrez Bell, 18 catches, 261, and 5 touchdowns. So, as much as I've harped on them catching the ball, Kentrez Bell has better stats than Lowell Patron. That team's 4-1. So, maybe the passing game isn't too bad. I'd still like to see those numbers up just a little bit. Get the third-string wide receivers involved, too, whatever you can. Billy Hall is just kind of the offense right now. Defensively, Dejon Emery, Amin Black, and Elijah Reed are your leading defensive statistic leaders. I think I said leading too many times there. Amin Black, he is my player to watch. 9 tackles, 1.5 tackles for a loss against Massachusetts. It was a back-and-forth game with them. A lot of penalties. I harped on it. It's just mental mistakes that this team is making. If Sioux Falls can squash that, we might have a close game here. Player to watch offensively for Sioux Falls, Billy Hall. Over 500 or 50% passing, 85 yards, 3 touchdowns. Roughly the same passing stats as Myler last week. Although 17 rushes, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns. If the running game is going to get going for Sioux Falls, I think they could have a chance to stay in this. That Green Bay defense is something else, though. When you look at the series history, Green Bay 3-26, but they just won. 48-35 week 6. That was just 2 weeks ago. They won at Green Bay. Now they're in Sioux Falls. I believe they play one more time this season. Green Bay on the road are 10-point favorites with a locked money line and an over-under of 79.5. It's a low number. Do we see some Big Ten football coming up? Check out in a second. Let's go look at our injury report, 25-man roster, and we'll look at our bets. Okay, injury report. Season injured reserve. Didn't know until now. Nick Holmes, Brandon Pennerton, both injured, done for the season. Refused to report. This is what I brought up earlier. I believe Jalen Alexander is going to be your starting linebacker. Marquise Hendricks refused to report. For people that just tune into this, they don't know the terminology. Refused to report just means exactly what you think it is. They just didn't show up. It's not like they just ghosted. They just said, "Hey, I'm not playing." Pretty much like that. Maybe they did ghost him. I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth or anything, but it's pretty much what refused to report means. They didn't show up. You got to move on and find other bodies at this point. Trey Adger as well. Both teams RTR. On the Sioux Falls side, season injured reserve, Xavier Jackson. Knee injury, I'm assuming, when he slipped on the advertisement against Massachusetts and Fargo. Done for the year. It's not going to bode well for them because on short-term injury reserve is their running back, Keyshawn Williams, offensive lineman Ty Cobb, Isaiah Blackman, and Kendricks Gladney Jr. was just put on the short-term injured reserve too, so the defensive backfield is going to look a little different this time around. Let's go take a look at the 25-man roster, check out our bet, and we'll do our predictions. All right, 25-man rosters. Max Myler, probably getting the start. Cagle and Burgess maybe splitting snaps. New addition, Kenyatta Skinner. I hope I pronounced that right. Doesn't have a number yet. He was just signed. We'll see where he plays. I'm sure Green Bay, at the time of this recording, I know that they have posted the article that he assigned. I'm sure they've given him a number. I made this at work, so I didn't have time to find his number yet. Anyway, good stable of wide receivers for them to throw to. Offensive line is still there. I believe they've started Clark, Thomas, and Marte every single game, so more of the same. Abdul Wahid, Biggers, and Mustin will probably start your defensive line. Like I said, they'll either have LJ Lovelace or Jalen Alexander as your linebacker. Lovelace has played there as kind of a emergency or backup role, so we'll see. Full stable of defensive backs. It's nice to see Mike Miller back after his season-ending injury last year. I don't think he played a single game because I think he got hurt in camp. So that's where we're at. I believe they said Sean Steele was injured too at some point. They didn't say anything about him on the injury report that I could find, so that's where we're at. Sioux Falls, Billy Hall probably starting. Bryson Denley as your running back. We'll see if they throw anyone else back there to kind of give him a break. Full stable of wide receivers, including Drayshawn Hudson, Lorenzo Thompson, and Donnie Corley. Offensive line, they've signed former Blizzard Tyrell Thompson. I believe they had him signed in training camp or before the season and had him cut. They just re-signed him. Defensive line, probably the same. And it depends, too. They had Logan Swanson play offensive line last week as well, so kind of switching people around. Linebacker, probably Amin Black. And then your defensive backs, Manasseh, I believe it's Manasseh Time, off-injured reserve. Cedric Williams had a pick six, I believe. Now I'm trying to remember. That was a huge play against them in Fargo. I don't think the pick six counted now that I'm thinking about it. I think there was a penalty that got called back. So I don't think he had a pick six, but I think he did have an interception. So we'll see who starts in place of Kendricks Gladney. Dwayne Betts is also signed there as well. Kickers, Andrew Mevis and Dean Saris round out these 25-man rosters. So those are the guys who are playing. Obviously, 4 of those guys will be inactive. We'll see which ones. Let's go check out our bet. We'll do some predictions, and we'll get on out of here. Okay. Over 79.5. Reason why. I think Sioux Falls can put up some points. They put up points against Massachusetts last week. Now, granted, Massachusetts didn't have Alejandro Benefield, Isaac Zico out for the season. They're on bye week, so it's not like I'm spoiling anything here. But they put up some points. 79.5 is a small number right now. I think the further we get into the season, the more you'll see some offenses start to really open some stuff up, especially when some of these teams start playing each other again and again. I like the over 79.5 here. I won't be shocked if the under hits. Big Ten battle, these two teams. Goal line stands the last time they met. I think Green Bay can put up some points, especially if they take more deep shots to Harry Ballard with one-handed Sports Center catches. If the passing game can get going for Sioux Falls, the running game and Billy Hall can really take off. The running back scenario kind of worries me about Sioux Falls, but ultimately I do think that this could go over. Barely. We'll be sweating this one. I'm for sure about that. I do think the over is going to hit, but it's going to be close. I'm thinking maybe 82, 83 points. It might be a last second touchdown. I don't know. I do think the over hits, though. It's going to be close. That's our bet. Let's go take a look at our predictions. We'll get on out of here. All right. Prediction time. I have not heard from Aaron. Don't know if we're doing Aaron's IFL Corner anymore. So he didn't email me anything. He hasn't said anything. This isn't to call him out. This isn't to air dirty laundry. There's no beef, no nothing. Just saying. Didn't receive anything. So, that being said, we'll just move on predictions just like we did last week. Make it short and sweet. First game, 45-38. Tulsa wins. Like I said, close game. Jacksonville scores over 35. I think Tulsa still wins. I have it as a touchdown, so I think Jacksonville can cover. But ultimately, I do think Tulsa wins this game. They are just really good right now. The travel kind of worries me a little bit about Jacksonville. You haven't seen Tamari and Terry's chemistry with Fred Payton yet. I mean, minus practice and stuff, but in a game situation, we'll see how that works out. It could work out great. It could work out really well. The Payton connection is fine. We'll see. The running game concerns me as well. Tulsa just put up 72 points. I think they're fine. As long as you get 1-yard situations and Daniel Smith can run it in, I think Tulsa's fine. 5 rushing touchdowns, man. Second game, Green Bay 45, Sioux Falls 35. Roughly the same scores here. Not the same scenario, though. I think Green Bay can win this game, win ugly, and still put up points. Sioux Falls worries me. They do. They still put up 30-plus points, but it worries me. Their penalties, their bad snaps, the running back situation with them as well. I get a little worried. Can Green Bay capitalize where they need to? We'll see. Excuse me. We'll see. But I do think Green Bay wins. They've already proven it here. I'm not shocked if Sioux Falls wins, though. If Sioux Falls pulls the upset, I won't be surprised, especially at home. I think Green Bay is too much for them, though. I do. It's a close game, 10-point game, but that's it. So that's my preview for Friday. Those are our predictions, bets, 25-man roster, injury report. Please pray to St. Tryon for more transactions, and we'll move on with Saturday's previews and stuff like that after the Friday games. So that being said, love you guys. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all of that good, fun YouTube stuff. That being said, I'm taking off here. I'll see you guys later.